Hi, it's Christina with the Sisyphean Journal, and I'm doing this video as a response to a comment on Karpin's Whistleblowers Part 4. And I'll link to Karpin's Whistleblowers Part 4. The woman commented, I want to understand the mindset of the woman who goes in for an abortion in the third trimester. Even if these women think the baby is a blob at 8, 12, 14 weeks, at 22 weeks you can feel the baby. You feel the baby kicking. They have to know they are paying someone to murder their child. They have to know this, right? Okay, so when we're looking at later abortions, we're generally looking at two scenarios. One is the scenario that the abortion lobby presents as being the common routine. This is why we do abortions past viability. And that's the women who, they wanted the baby, but they get an unfavorable prenatal diagnosis. And in these cases, from what I've seen from women's stories, sometimes it's the woman herself who has a prejudice against disability. She has this belief that life with a disability is just not a life worth living. It comes from a very strong misunderstanding of the fact that people with disabilities are people. They are no more or less likely to be happy or satisfied in their lives than people who don't have disabilities. So the woman might be going in with prejudices, thinking, well, you know, if the baby isn't physically in optimal condition, this baby's going to have a miserable life. And so I have to divide this up into three now that I'm thinking about it. So here's where we're diverging again. Okay, so you've got the women who think, you know, this baby is going to be disabled, this baby's going to be unable to be happy, so we have to kind of euthanize the baby. They view it as sad, but they tend to view it the way you, and it's sad to say this, the way you would view taking your beloved dog to the vet to have it put down. Do you want your dog to die? No, but your dog has cancer or some other condition, or your dog's extremely old and has a medical condition, and you don't want to put this dog through all this medical treatment, so you decide to have the dog put down, and you bring the dog in, and you say goodbye to the dog and have it put down, and they kind of see aborting the baby that way. Then there are the women who don't have that prejudice, but the doctors do, or the doctors don't want to get sued, or I've talked about this before. Doctors go into obstetrics because they want to be part of the joy of delivering these babies and seeing everything beautiful. And when there's an unfavorable prenatal diagnosis, the trajectory changes. It's no longer this routine, happy thing. These parents are facing a difficult life with this child. It might be, they're going to have the kid in early intervention programs. The child's going to have a lot of health problems. The child is possibly going to grow up living in a group home instead of independent and being married and having kids. All the dreams that a parent usually has for a child are blown out of the water by this diagnosis. And these doctors want to be part of something happy. They don't want to be part of something sad. So they want to bail out of the situation, and they do this by pushing for an abortion and convincing the family that really this is the best thing to do, that having the baby with this disability, they kind of frame it in terms that you're imposing a disability on the baby. They present having the baby as if it is doing a bad thing and causing the baby to have a disability, rather than framing it as, okay, you have this baby with a disability, how are we going to deal with it? So instead of presenting perinatal hospice or support groups of parents with children with similar problems, they just push for an abortion. And then there's the women who think in terms of what it's going to mean for them and their family, and they don't want to make an adoption plan. They might not even know that people would be perfectly happy to adopt a child with a disability. There are lots of families that specifically do adopt children with disabilities because they had a child of their own with a disability, and they're like, yes, this is difficult, but it's also enriching in ways that we hadn't anticipated. In fact, for children with Down syndrome, there is a waiting list of about 2 years for families that want to adopt a baby with Down syndrome to get a baby, because the babies just get snatched right up. People want to adopt children with Down syndrome. But these parents, they don't want the disruption to their lives. So well, it's better. We don't want this baby to go through life, not just with this disability, but with knowing that he or she was such a burden to us. So there's that whole group. There's something amiss with the baby. And long story short, it kind of gets turned into a situation like getting your dog put down. Then there's the vast majority of later abortions. And those are done for the same reasons as earlier abortions. There's just a reason for the delay. And one of the more common reasons for a delay is that she didn't realize she was pregnant. These are typically younger girls, maybe girls who aren't as much on the ball. They're not paying attention to their bodies. They're not paying attention to the passage of time, and it just kind of sneaks up on them. Or they're kind of immature emotionally and hoping this will all go away. And by the time the fact that they're pregnant becomes so obvious that they can no longer avoid it, it's still kind of like early pregnancy. They're still in this mindset of unreality, that this isn't really happening. I can make all this go away. And so the mindset is very similar. And if, some women don't feel the baby move as early as other women. If you've watched, there's a series, and there's also a YouTube channel where an OBGYN reacts to episodes of I Didn't Know I Was Pregnant. And these are women, perfectly ordinary women. These aren't necessarily, 400-pound women where you would expect there's so much fat surrounding the uterus that they're not feeling the baby kick, and because they already weigh 600 pounds, they're not going to notice the weight gain. These are perfectly ordinary women you'd see walking around and not think anything was unusual about them, and they didn't realize they were pregnant. So there is some of this not realizing they're pregnant, not feeling the baby move, not recognizing the baby's movements for what it is. And again, they get into that mindset of, this isn't real, and if I just end this pregnancy, it'll be like all of this never happened. Some of them, they just keep putting off making up their mind. They're putting it off. They're so ambivalent about the abortion, and it seems weird that the women who are most ambivalent about abortion might be having them later in the pregnancy. But I think that's a situation where her desire to keep her baby and the pressure she's getting from outside are just in so much conflict that finally those outside forces just overwhelm what it is she wants, and she just emotionally shuts down and goes through it. So I don't think it's ever a matter of the woman like, look, I'm just going to pay somebody to kill this baby. Either it's the prenatal diagnosis thing where they get themselves into a mindset that it's like taking your dog to the vet and having it put down, or they just get into this mindset of this whole pregnancy thing is unreal, and if I just go through with this abortion, it'll make this have all gone away. So I hope that kind of answers the question, and I would love for women who have had later abortions or know somebody in their life who has had a later abortion, go ahead and clarify. We would love to know.